Newsmax TV's coverage of Super Tuesday 2016 continues. I'm J.D. Hayworth at the anchor desk, and we're pleased to continue our conversation with the host of the Steve Malzberg Show. From Newsmax New York, it's Steve Malzberg, whom we usually see weeknights at 7 p.m. And we're also joined from Newsmax Washington by a columnist for the Hill newspaper, which I used to read during my days on Capitol Hill, Brent Budowsky. Brent, since you're the newcomer to the conversation, your take on what we've seen so far tonight.
Well, I think it was probably a good day for Democrats in the sense of the candidate that the Democrats want to run against, Donald Trump, did well. The candidate that the Democrats don't want against, Marco Rubio, did poorly. And the Democrats are moving towards some kind of a harmony where both Hillary and Bernie today were fairly friendly. Hillary started to sound like Bernie in her speech. She could almost claim a copyright violation when she sounded like a populist. So I think it was generally on that level a good day. I do agree with Roger Stone about the Mitt Romney possibility. If I were the Republican establishment, that's what I'd be thinking right now. And real brief, I just want to just show you. I'm doing the full Donald tonight. This is a Donald Trump suit made in Mexico. This is a Donald Trump tie, okay, made in China with a Spanish label, and a Donald Trump dress shirt made in Bangladesh. Now, if this is his idea of making America great, he picked the three wrong countries to do it.
Well, Brent, the point was made the other night by Marco Rubio, who you insist is the Republican that the Democrats most fear, worth noting he has yet to win, although we'll see what happens tonight in Minnesota. Steve, Marco tried that argument. Brent is rehashing it in very graphic form tonight, but thus far it hasn't held water against Donald Trump.
No, well, by the way, Brent, who once cut a tie, his tie, live on the air during one of our interviews, and wore a Green Bay Packers jacket and all that. Just so you guys should know, I tried to crash the Mao Museum in China and grab Hillary's outfits, but I was unsuccessful in doing that. I'm very sorry. No, none of that is going to matter against Donald Trump. None of it whatsoever. Look. I don't even know where to begin with this. First of all, could I ask both of you guys a question? Maybe you know the answer, both but JD and Brent, because I have no clue. A, why was Chris Christie the one introducing Donald Trump? Why was he flown in from Jersey to Florida? And two, why was he standing there next to him as if he was just been selected vice president during the whole press conference? Does anybody have a clue?
Yes, I do. Let me venture forth a theory on this. The talk was tonight, at least I thought, we might see Florida Governor Rick Scott. Now, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if there's any endorsement in the offing, and I don't want to speculate. But devoid of that, this was Trump in a nonverbal fashion saying to the folks who were more establishment, who were Christie-type moderates, look, here's my version of the big tent. Here's Chris out to introduce me, and he stands alongside patiently. And also, truth be told, Steve, it may have been a make-good. Do you remember the ambient audio the other day from the road when the Donald was heard to say to Governor Christie, thanks, get on the plane, go on back home. So it was probably what we call in the business a make-good. That is just conjecture on my part, but let's let Brent get it on it, see what he says.
Yeah, I actually agree with what J.D. just said. I think he nailed it perfectly. What I would say, though, Steve, in answer to your earlier comment about Marco and the clothes, a poll came out today from CNN that showed Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump by 8 points and Bernie Sanders walloping Donald Trump by 12. Which is the pattern of polling. So it may not hurt Donald in a Republican primary, but it does hurt Donald in a general election. And don't believe a word you hear from Team Clinton that they're really worried about Donald. Democrats are dying, drooling, and praying that they can run against Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, but first of all, I think
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. To JD's point, I don't want to lose this. Check the tape. As Christie and Trump were walking off the stage tonight, Christie turned to him and said, good job, shook his hand, and then Donald, I swear, pushed him from the back, like, move. You got to look at it, I swear.
Well, now, we will have our staff hunt that video down. We'll see if we can find that image. But let me go back to what... Go. Well, it's just what Brent had to say about how Team Clinton is salivating at the chance to take on Donald Trump. That sounds strangely like what we heard back in 1980 about how the Carter White House yearned for a matchup with Ronald Reagan.
Brent, as Donald Trump said today earlier on one of the shows, he hasn't even started against Hillary. He was able to shut her up with this whole sexist notion that Donald Trump is a misogynist, he's a sexist, by simply bringing forward the accusations against her and her husband regarding other women. You ain't seen nothing yet. The women will come forward and stand behind Donald Trump and do ads. The Benghazi families who Hillary lied to and said it was the video, we'll get those people. And now Hillary has called them liars. They will stand behind Trump. And bashing the police, traveling around with Trayvon Martin's mother, being against guns, suing gun manufacturers. Are you kidding? She is so abortion at 9 months. She is so far out of it that she's going to get clobbered.
What about it, Brent?
Steve, I take it you're not going to support Hillary Clinton from what you just said. But no, let me tell you, in 1980, I was finishing 6 years with Lloyd Benson, about to go to the London School of Economics. And I remember what J.D. said is right. I warned Benson about Reagan, that he is a much stronger candidate. I warned the White House, the Carter White House, that they were taking him too easily. I'm well aware of that problem. But I'll tell you, if I wanted a filibuster, starting with Donald Trump attacking prisoners of war, saying that he prefers troops that didn't get caught, I could go on for an hour to El Duce Mussolini, to the Ku Klux Klan, and on and on and on. You want to run Trump in the Republican Party, as Clint Eastwood said, make my day.
Well, we'll see about that. In the interim, there is still a nomination to be won on the Republican side, and likewise a standard bearer to be determined on the Democratic side. To the GOP, as the numbers are coming out from Minnesota, as the votes are coming in there, with about half the vote in, we understand tonight that in those caucuses, Marco Rubio now has a 9-point lead over Ted Cruz. So Steve Malzberg, we were saying earlier tonight that Rubio wanted to avoid the nickname Ruby-O, O for everything. It looks like he may be able to pull off a win there in Minnesota. Does that give him the beachhead he needs for all the establishment dough and a repeat this Thursday night of what we saw last week in the debate?
No, I don't believe so. I think Donald Trump's nomination is inevitable. And as far as looking ahead to November, Rubio would beat Hillary on substance, pure substance, old, young, ideas, new, old, fresh, stale, minority, white woman. I mean, he would just clean up on substance. Donald Trump will beat Hillary, as I said, by going everywhere. So Hillary has a choice of nightmares. Cruz, by the way, is not electable. I like him. He's a true conservative. He's just not electable in a general election, I don't believe. So Rubio or Trump, either one would beat Hillary for different reasons, but there's no way Rubio's getting the nomination. I mean, there's just no way, Minnesota notwithstanding. So it's Trump. Nothing's going to stop Trump. They're going to say mafia. They're going to say KKK, which is just a fallacy total on the KKK. They're going to say Trump University, which is like 4 people suing him out of thousands that attended the university. They can try all they want. Meanwhile, Hillary's got an FBI investigation hanging over her.
Indeed, Brent, and we'll get your comment on this in a second. Dick Morris earlier tonight said this Democratic fight may not be so much Hillary versus Bernie, but Hillary versus the FBI. But before we get there, you know, Steve Malzberg mentioned the video. Our great staff has the moment at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, when Mr. Trump and Governor Christie were departing the stage. Let's take a look at it now and see if it lives up to the perception and the buildup it got from my colleague Steve Malzberg. Let's take a look. All right, so there's Trumpster thanking everybody, shaking hands with the kids, gesturing that way. And let's see what he does here. There's the outstretched hand, and sure enough, there's a little helpful kind of linkage. Now, it wasn't really hostile. In fact, if we remember our history, Edmund Morris, in the book The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, in the foreword to that great work that won the National Book Award, I believe, in 1979, he pointed out how TR stood in front of the White House, I believe in 1907, to let people come shake his hand, and he would find something to say, "You're Dutch, I'm Dutch too," would shake their hand and then kind of guide them through the line. So maybe it was shades of TR, at least in handshake. Didn't look hostile to me, Steve.
Well, I saw it live, so I could not see it now, unfortunately. But
we've got it in slow motion. Here's the
notice
replay in slow motion, Steve. There it is.
Yeah, but I can't see it.
Yeah, okay. I see a little more of a push from behind there. I saw initially a handshake, and so upon further review, as they say in the NFL, Steve, you may have something. Now back to Brent, because we really do have to talk about what our friend Dick Morris said earlier, and that is the specter of the criminal investigation hanging over Hillary Clinton like a sword of Damocles. What's going to happen with that, Brent?
Well, it is entirely up to James Comey, the director of the FBI, for whom I have enormous respect. In that sense, Hillary's in a one-person primary, and the only guy that votes is Comey. And I'll let him look at the evidence, let him make the decision. I will have a lot of confidence whichever way he goes. No doubt, if he goes negative on Hillary and recommends a prosecution, she's in big trouble. If he doesn't, she gains pretty fast. And it really comes down to that. And I'm waiting to see what he says. It was obviously an error in judgment, a mistake. She should have apologized and been much clearer from the beginning. Nobody would disagree with that that's honest about it. On the prosecution, I really think it's a one-man primary with James Comey. And we'll just have to let him make his decision, and then we'll react to it. Well, I have a lot of confidence in him.
Yeah, Steve, I see you shaking your hand. Is this just a mistake, approached the wrong way? Or there's more there, is there not?
Well, I think, yeah. With all due respect, I think maybe it's the clothes that he's wearing that are affecting the judgment of Brent Budowsky. Although I know better. Look, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue if it was what she did was wrong. I believe it was criminal, and you don't. But it's not just up to Comey. Loretta Lynch was questioned by Bret Baier the other night, and she admitted basically that ultimately the decision comes down to her, a political appointee, a political hack. Will make the decision after all the recommendations from career FBI, career Justice Department, career investigators are in. She gets to decide. And I think that is a horrific, horrific scenario. And it's unfortunate.
Let's talk about another.
And by the way, you know what you know why they're going to delay? You know why they're going to delay? They're going to delay this as long as possible, hoping that Hillary becomes president, and then when she gets elected and sworn in, she pardons everybody, because, Brent, it's not just Hillary or nobody, her charges or no charges. There's Uma, there's Cheryl Mills, there's other people around her. And if one of them get in trouble, it's going to reflect on her.
Gentlemen, let me pause right here. Let me just ask you,
Steve,
Brent, let me just...
The politics will depend on what James Comey does. That's where the politics will have the impact, one way or the other.
Well, let me turn back to politics and results tonight from the Centennial State. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont has picked up his third victory tonight. Various news organizations and networks now projecting that Bernie Sanders will win the Colorado Democratic Caucus. You couple that with his wins in Oklahoma and his home state of Vermont, and Bernie picking up 3 victories tonight, while Hillary basically ran the table in the South, with the exception of Oklahoma. So, Brent, back to what you had to say about Director Comey really being the one-man primary here.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of respect for his integrity, and I will, tend to go wherever he goes on this. Politically, the way Washington works, he will or will not recommend a prosecution. If he does, and if Loretta Lynch or anybody else tries to cover it up, you will be reading about that. You will be seeing that on every television station, every newspaper, and that will have a devastating political impact. On the other hand, if he does not recommend it, it'll help her a tremendous degree. But in the politics of the thing, it is not cover-upable politically. It may be legally, it may not be, but politically, if the FBI director does, call for a criminal prosecution, I think that's going to be extremely damaging to her. And if he doesn't, it'll be extremely helpful. So I do think his voice, and I have total confidence in his integrity. I can come back on the show, whatever he recommends, and I will agree with him probably, whichever way he goes.
Well, there's another dynamic at work here, Steve, and that is the fact that there is a great suspicion that Loretta Lynch, our Attorney General, newly appointed Attorney General, comparatively speaking, gets her orders directly from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and the real decision rests not so much with Director Comey as it does with the Attorney General. The real danger, if we see this play out to where the Attorney General does not move forward, we understand that career FBI people are willing to go on the record, not to put words in the director's mouth prematurely, but there is a buzz in Washington, and Brent, you've heard it, that if the Justice Department does not move forward, a whole lot of G-men, as they used to be called during J. Edgar Hoover's day, are not going to go quietly into that good night. They're going to raise HE double hockey sticks. Steve, in that way, that could be a real political liability for Mrs. Clinton.
Oh, that would be horrific for her, and it would almost be as bad as her being indicted. As Loretta Lynch following through on the recommendations if they come down that way. And and you're right, as far as marching orders, she was asked the other day. They played Josh Earnest, who you recall said, from what I hear from the Justice Department, there's unlikely to be an indictment. Hillary's not a target. So they played that for Loretta Lynch and said, did you tell them that? No. Do you know of anyone in the Justice Department who told them that? No. Well, how could he have known that? She said, I don't know. Now, who do you believe? Did Josh Earnest pull that out of thin air? Or did he open his mouth when he shouldn't have? Because that's very, very serious. Even Webb Hubble told me on my show that there should be no communication between the White House and the Justice Department on this or any other case.
What about that, Brent? In the real world, and from time to time, Michael Patrick Flanagan, my old colleague on Capitol Hill, the guy who took Rostenkowski's job as a Chicago Republican, talk about an endangered species. Every once in a while, Michael Patrick Flanagan comes on this show to explain the Chicago way. Knowing the habits and the way politics is played in Cook County, Illinois, do you believe there is a wall of separation and non-contact between justice and the White House, or is there a very active back channel, Brent?
Oh, I would probably suspect there's some kind of a back channel, but I'll come back to this. James Comey is a man of rock solid integrity and honor. Nobody can buy him. Nobody can control him. He will do what he believes is legally and patriotically correct, whatever that is. And he will not go quietly, as the Bush administration learned when he was with them. So I think in the end, the politics will ultimately be decided by what Director Comey decides. He will not go quietly if he thinks there should be a prosecution, or if he doesn't. He'll be equally obvious about it. And that's where the fate will rest. The back channel's less important politically. The decision of Director Comey, who everyone in Washington, Democrats included, myself included, have great respect for, that's where the ball game will be decided one way or the other, in my opinion.
Gentlemen, we would be remiss if we did not refocus our attention on Vermont, where, believe it or not, the results are coming in, and John Kasich, who was down substantially, now with 80% of the precincts reporting, is now within a point of Donald Trump. 32% for Trump, 31% for Kasich. Steve Malzberg, do you believe the Washington establishment regrets putting all its eggs in the Marco Rubio basket?
No, I mean, for Kasich, it's like a dying man. And you're giving him a drink and saying, here, take this, and it's going to prolong your life, politically speaking here, of course. And it does for that 1 minute, but then the death is more painful than it would have been if you didn't have the drink. I mean, enough with John Kasich. For crying out loud, he should get out. I don't know how he's even in still. He was endorsed by the New York Times. On gay marriage, the Supreme Court decision, he says, hey, we have to accept it. It's the law. I mean, just those two things alone say there's no way he could be an establishment candidate backed by the Republican establishment, and there's no way he gets the base. He motivates the base. No way on the face of the earth.
All right, well, we will see at least tonight in terms of a horse race and a surprise. We're going to keep our eye on Vermont, just for kicks, and also for Minnesota on the Republican side. Brent Budowsky, Newsmax Washington, Steve Malzberg, Newsmax New York. Gentlemen, we'll have you back in a while, and we're going to step aside for a minute. We'll refocus, regather the results, report them to you, and have more analysis. It's Super Tuesday 2016, and you're watching Newsmax TV's live coverage of Super Tuesday, which will continue right here, right after this.